We've all been taught the same thing. If someone misunderstands you, explain. If they still don't understand, explain more clearly. Most of the time, that's good advice. The problem is, not every conversation is a misunderstanding. You explain what happened. They keep asking the same question, like you never answered it. You explain what you meant. They keep reacting to whatever they already decided you meant, and you start wondering if you're even talking about the same conversation. You explain why it happened. They only care whether it happens again, so every reason you give sounds more like an excuse than an answer. You explain the context. Every new detail makes you sound more defensive, not more honest. Different people, different situations, same ending. You explained everything. Somehow it got worse. It wasn't because you didn't explain clearly enough. Explanation only solves one kind of problem, a lack of information. The moment that's no longer the problem, more explanation doesn't help. It solves the wrong thing. Here's a part almost nobody notices. Every conversation is carrying a hidden question underneath it. Explanation only works if you're answering that question. The 4 patterns below are the 4 most common hidden questions and 4 ways to recognize in the moment which one you're actually in. Pattern 1. Why did my explanation suddenly start sounding like an excuse? The hidden question is, can I trust you? You didn't suddenly become worse at explaining. The conversation changed. They stopped judging your words. They started judging your actions. Here's the fastest way to recognize it. Every new explanation changes your understanding of the situation. None of them change theirs. You're still updating the conversation. They're no longer updating their judgment. You'll see it everywhere. A partner simply says, okay. A manager asks, what are you going to do next? A friend replies, we'll see. Different people, different situations, same shift. Your words simply stopped being the kind of evidence they're tracking. Once you recognize this pattern, stop trying to sound more believable. Start giving them something they can observe. Pattern 2. Why do they keep asking after I already answered? The hidden question is, what happens next? You'll recognize it by what keeps coming back. You answer. They ask again. You explain differently. They still don't move. It feels like they're ignoring your answer. Usually they aren't. The question underneath has quietly changed. You'll see it everywhere. Your manager asks, how do I know this won't happen again? You explain why it happened. Your partner asks, do you even care? You list everything you've done. A customer asks, when will this be fixed? Someone starts explaining why it was delayed. Different conversations. Same pattern. The answer keeps getting better. The conversation doesn't. The question being discussed has quietly changed. Repeating the same answer won't catch up to it. Once you recognize this pattern, stop refining your answer. Find the question they're actually trying to solve. Pattern 3. Why didn't the facts settle the argument? The hidden question is, what matters more? Here's the signal. Every new fact gets another fact back. Nobody is arguing about whether something is true. They're arguing about why it matters. You'll see it everywhere. One parent argues for safety. The other argues for independence. One partner points to the budget. The other points to what the money represents. One coworker points to the rules. The other points to the outcome. Different arguments, same pattern. More information keeps entering the conversation. Nothing actually moves. The facts aren't necessarily wrong. They're just no longer what decides the outcome. Once you recognize this pattern, stop collecting evidence. Find the value each side is protecting. Pattern 4. Why did nothing I said change the outcome? The hidden question is, what decision are we making? You'll recognize this one by the language. The conversation stops sounding like, why? It starts sounding like, so what now? What happens next? What are you willing to do? Here's what we're going to do. You'll see it everywhere. You're asking for a raise. They're discussing budget. You're trying to save a relationship. They're deciding whether to stay. You're negotiating a contract. They're discussing what each side will accept. Different situations, same pattern. The conversation keeps moving forward, even while you're still explaining what already happened. Not because it isn't true, because explanation is no longer what's moving the conversation. Once you recognize this pattern, stop defending the past. Figure out what decision is already being made. We were taught one rule. If someone doesn't understand you, explain. If they still don't, explain more clearly. That rule isn't wrong. It just doesn't cover everything. It only works while the hidden question is still, do you have the information? The moment the hidden question changes to trust, to what happens next, to what matters more, or to what decision is being made, explanation stops being the tool, even though the conversation still looks the same from the outside. So the next time you catch yourself explaining for the third or fourth time and it's somehow making things worse, stop and ask one question before you say anything else. What's the hidden question here? And have you actually been answering it? Know when to stop. Know what's missing.